While driving one Sunday afternoon, my wife and I saw a dirt road that looked rather inviting. So we decided to just take a ride and check it out. After about a mile, we saw a deer standing 25 or 30 feet off the road. I asked my wife to roll the window down so I could take some pictures with the 35mm camera. Ordinarily, one click and the deer would probably be gone. So she rolled the window down and I took the picture, and the deer stood right there and looked at me. The snow was quite deep at the time, so I took several pictures right from the car, and the deer still didn't move. In fact, behind this deer were several others, and even more behind them. I got out of the car and walked down the road and went over the snowbank to enter where they evidently went in. Out of about 25 deer, they let me walk right up into the middle of them. I had cut up some apples and put them in my pocket. The deer began sniffing around and were trying to reach into my pocket to get them. I could tell they were very hungry and willing to overlook my presence for something to eat. At the time, I was taking 35mm pictures. That's before I even heard of a video camera. I took 24 pictures and ran out of film, so I walked back to the car to reload. I turned around and came back, and they let me walk right back into the middle of them again. All the deer were looking up, as much as to say, "Well, what are you doing here?" So I took another 24 pictures, and by this time I was out of film again. Every year since then, I've been coming up into the area, and each year the different deer that knew me from the year before bring their fawns up to me, almost as if to introduce them. The mother seems to give them permission to eat from my hand, and it's been a lifetime thrill just to have this happen. Then ever since then, it's just been a dream to be able to touch a deer or just associate with them. My name is Harold Somerville, and 8 years ago I came up here and been coming up every year since about this time of year. The first time up, we got pictures of deer within 5 minutes after we got here, and it's been increasingly better every year since. Up to the point where they come to my call and come up, eat out of my hand, and take bits of apple from my mouth. And it's actually a childhood dream come true. I would like to tell you up front that most of the footage you are about to see, I took myself with a conventional home video camera. Since I've learned how to shoot with a video camera, I've made many trips looking for deer in the past years. It hasn't always been possible to bring along a camera crew on short notice, so I've had to improvise. As you can imagine, being in the right place at the right time is most important for obtaining those once-in-a-lifetime shots. I have found while working with these deer, they have to be approached with a lot of caution, and you have to express a trust in them, which will be returned in kind to you. Any loud noises or fast movement will spook a deer and sometimes takes them half an hour to an hour to settle down where they'll want to cooperate with you just being there. I found that talking to them in a low voice and kneeling on the ground, putting myself at their level, puts them at ease. Sometimes I'll toss a few kernels of corn towards them to see if they really are interested in coming closer. I found that the more I talk, the more at ease they become. I generally have cut up or sliced up apples, corn on the cob, and loose kernel corn. Once they take the loose corn and show an interest, I'll bring out a cob of corn, and if they want it, they come closer and take the corn off the cob. Deer only have teeth on the bottom and the front, so they have to actually rip in an upward motion to get the kernels from the cob. Any kernels that fall to the ground are cleaned up completely before they leave. With apples, I generally slice them so they'll be in a circular shape. Then I can toss the pieces to the deer without them settling into the snow, where it makes it too hard for the deer to find. The first time I approached a deer, I cut an apple in half and offered it with the white side up. The deer wouldn't take it until I turned it over so it could see the red of the apple. Obviously, it had never seen half an apple in the wild. It is believed that deer are colorblind, but through observation, I suspect that deer can tell the difference between colors. If you put pieces of apple in your pocket, the deer will very gently attempt to get the apple out of your pocket. Because of this, I can tell they have a keen sense of smell. If there are no deer in the immediate area, I will rub an apple on a tree and the scent will permeate the woods. Within minutes, the deer will pick up this scent and come looking for the source. I've even observed them licking the bark of the tree where I rubbed the apple.
Oh, look at here. There's my babe. There's my babe. Now, here's an apple. Get that?
Deer have scent glands located on several parts of their body. The most obvious ones are located inside the hind legs at the mid-joint. This allows them to lay down a scent for other deer to follow. During mating season, this is very important. Here you can see a buck tracking the scent of a doe almost like a dog would track an animal. He lowers his head to the level of the doe's scent gland and tracks her through the woods. If a deer is walking on ice, its hoofs act almost like the blades of an ice skate. However, if more traction is needed, the deer will actually walk on the tips of its hoofs. This is called spiking. These points are extremely sharp and provide better traction. If a deer does the splits on ice, the cartilage that actually holds the two hind legs together will tear and the deer will not be able to stand. Consequently, this makes the deer easy prey for predators. Dogs that chase deer will invariably maneuver them towards open ice in the winter, thus increasing the chances of disabling them by causing them to go down. On several occasions, I've noticed deer in the woods with half a tail or no tail at all. There are three possibilities as to why this happens. One reason could be a stray shot or a poorly aimed shot from a hunter's rifle. Since deer react instantly to any invasion of their privacy, they often start running as the hunter takes aim. It's also possible that while the deer was still a fawn, it might not have been able to outrun a dog or a coyote. These types of predators will most generally grab the tail of the deer and try to bring it down while on the run. Obviously, this deer survived the chase and grew up without a tail. The other possibility, I've been told by some experienced woodsmen, happens when sub-zero temperatures occur. A deer lies down to rest and its body temperature melts the ice or snow. And when it's time to get up and move, the tail has actually frozen in the ice. Many old-timers say it is not unusual to find a tail in a deer's bed. During my first encounter, which I spoke of earlier, there was a deer in the herd with no tail, and consequently, from then on, I called her Tailless. For several more winters, Tailless and I became well acquainted. She was the first deer ever to eat from my hand, and she would come to my call almost any time. After 7 years of calling and feeding her, she finally could only eat apples, refusing any corn that I offered. This led me to believe that her teeth had become too worn to chew. Another resident of the area had fed this same deer 5 years prior to the time that I first fed her. This means that she had to be at least 12 years old, and that is a better than average age for a deer. It has been 2 years since I last saw Tailless, and I suspect she probably died from starvation. Not for the lack of food, but being unable to chew it. This is a fact of life for deer in the wild, and is one of nature's ways of controlling the deer population. Man's way of doing this is by having an open hunting season so a regulated number of deer can be taken. I would be very sad indeed if I knew one of the deer that I had befriended had been killed. But being a practical man, I know at some future time this cannot be avoided. 4 years ago, Talus brought her fawn to me. She allowed the fawn to take corn from my hand. This fawn, which I call Babe, has brought a new fawn to me for each of the last 2 years, the same way that her mother Talus did with her. After calling Babe and she starts toward me, she will come closer and stop, waiting for another call. When I call again, she will always twitch her tail, which is a signal to me that she will continue to come. It took 4 years of hand feeding Babe before she would allow me to pet her. Also this year, I discovered that with gentle coaxing, she would take a piece of apple from my mouth. To an animal, this must be a sign of affection, because after she takes the apple, I ask her for a kiss and she responds.
Another kiss? Hey, that's a good kiss. That's a good kiss.
This year, one of Babe's fawns, a little buck which I call Little Babe, finally allowed me to feed him from my hand. He represents the 3rd generation of that Talus deer's family. Next year, he'll probably come to me as this young Spikehorn did. Many people have asked me how I can be so sure that these deer are the same ones I fed the previous year. I found that most deer, like people, have their own individual look and personality. Not only do I recognize them from their markings, but they recognize me from my scent. For example, Babe never misses the opportunity to sniff the scent of my hair when I kneel down. This assures her of my identity. While on the other hand, this 8-point buck that I call Bucky smells the camera to associate that scent with me. Just like people, some deer are actually beautiful, while others are quite homely. In any event, when you work with these deer, year after year, there's no doubt who's who. It seems that no matter what species we observe, the most interesting and heartwarming subject is the newborn baby. The birthing season for deer runs from mid-May to July, which means the gestation period is about 7 months, since the mating season runs from October to January. After the fawn is born, usually in a field of high grass, the mother will leave it unattended between feedings for approximately the first week of life. The reason for this is to keep her scent from getting on the fawn. The newborn fawn has no natural scent of its own, and this helps protect it from predators. If by chance you find a fawn in the wild, do not touch it. Your own scent, if transferred to the fawn, makes it too easy for dogs and coyotes to locate it. It is illegal in most states to disturb or handle a newborn fawn for this reason. When the fawn is born, it's covered with spots that act as a form of camouflage. These spots will begin to disappear after 4 to 5 months. The fawn will generally stay quite close to its mother for the first year or so. She teaches by example what to eat, where to roam, what to fear. In general, How to survive. About the time the mother bears the next year's fawn, she will actually chase her yearling buck away. This is a time for him to begin a new life for himself and establish his own territory. The female yearling will usually stay with the mother another year to assist the raising of the new fawn. One in every 125,000 births results in a deer being born with unusual markings, as in the case of this yearling. Another extremely rare occurrence is twin fawns born to a normally colored doe. They both have large areas of white hair on their bodies. If they were pure white with pink eyes, they would be considered albino. However, these deer are called piebald because of their brown and white markings. I was fortunate enough to be in a field with a video camera when these deer came within 20 feet of where I was hidden in a patch of sumac. Because the setting sun behind me blinded them, they could not see me, although they could smell my presence. This little buck kept stamping the ground, trying to make me move so he could identify me. Only by maintaining complete silence was I able to observe them as they went about their normal activity. A friend that was with me at the time was able to get several good photographs of these piebald deer. After the breeding season, which is called a rut, bucks will usually lose their antlers for the winter. This happens around the middle of January. However, there are exceptions to this when the buck is able to get plenty of good food through the lean days of winter. I've actually seen deer with antlers in the month of March. The antlers fall off one side at a time. This occurs naturally, and the scar heals over before the new antler starts to develop. Here you can see where half the antlers are missing. This buck came out of the woods as a 10-pointer and returned within minutes with only 5 of the original 10 points. A buck will begin to develop new antlers in late spring. At first they appear as a button, but very quickly they begin to take shape. Within weeks, the rack is fully grown and covered with a velvet layer. This layer protects the antler until later in the year when the buck rubs the velvet off on a small tree. Once this rubbing is completed, the rack becomes highly polished and completes the yearly cycle of the antlers. A large, majestic rack means the buck is in good health and has had a plentiful food supply. It also represents strength and dominance over the other deer. After this deer, Bucky, ate corn and apples from my hand, I thought I'd see how tolerant he would be. I wanted to see if he would let me pet him or scratch his head between his antlers. Never having touched him before, I had no idea how he would react. I knew that if he wanted to, with one twist of those antlers, he could break my wrist. To my complete surprise, he not only let me pet him, but seemed to thoroughly enjoy it. I look forward to seeing him again next year because these pictures were taken after the hunting season was over. What do you smell? What do you smell, huh? What do you smell? Can we pet you, huh? Come on. Go. Come on, babe. Come on, babe. Come on, babe. Come on, babe. I was only 10 years old when I first saw a deer in the wild. I'll never forget the feeling of seeing this graceful animal run as free as the wind with such poise and beauty. Like other men who hunt, I too had to try my hand at it for a while, but soon realized that my respect for this animal kept me from ever wanting to destroy such a beautiful creature by my own hand. It's necessary for the survival of the species to have a hunting season for the sportsman, especially in areas where deer are found in excessive numbers. I'm now in my 70s and I still like to hunt, but not with a rifle. I use a camera with corn and apples for ammunition.